Let's talk about one of your big projects at the moment, and that is with Virgin Galactic. You're working towards the next test flight and the eventual real flight, that is. Give us an update on where you are.
We are more than tantalizingly close now. So we should be in space within weeks, not months. And then we'll be in space with myself in months, not years. And then we'll be in space with people not too long after that. So we've got a very, very exciting couple of months ahead.
Certainly is exciting, and I wonder what you're expecting in the way of consumer demand, because really at Virgin Group it's all been about disrupting sectors throughout your history where customers are underserved. But in the field of space, they haven't been served at all. So does that make you nervous at all, trying to gauge the market and just what that demand will look like?
If I have a room full of 10 people, 8 out of 10 would love to go to space if they could afford it. And of those people who could afford it, again, it's something like 8 out of 10 would love to go to space. So I think the market for people who would love to become astronauts, go to space, is gigantic. And I think it's up to us to produce as many spaceships as we can to cater with that demand. And then we've also obviously got Virgin Orbit, which is going to be putting satellites into space. That should go into space either December or January. And the demand for putting small satellites into space is a gigantic one. I mean, there's nearly 4.5 billion people who are not connected. So, so we're hoping that will do well as well.
When you say if they could afford it, just how much is it today, and what will it look like, let's say, 10 years from now? Will the cost come down significantly?
So it's taken us 14 years to get here. Initially, the cost will go up. I mean, it was $250. We're trying to work out what price to put it at. That will then stay up, I think, for 3 or 4 years whilst we recoup our investment. And then it will start going down again. And I think ultimately, we could be talking, in 10 years' time, maybe $40,000 or $50,000 to put somebody into space. And that, compared with the sort of $50 million that it costs on a Russian spaceship, is anyway more affordable for a vast majority of people, but obviously not affordable for everybody.
Perhaps that's why we see so many billionaires chasing this business pursuit. Of course, you're not the only one. We think of Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. Jeff Bezos, I understand, is going neck and neck with you to get that first commercial space flight. Who's going to win?
We'll see. I mean, I don't think either of us, the safety is obviously number one priority. So neither of us are going to race to beat the other one. I think that in reality, both of us are going to do extremely well out of it, because the amount of people who want to go to space is enormous, and we're not going to be able to build enough spaceships to satisfy demand. So if we both went up on the same day, that would be great.
And when it comes to Elon Musk, he obviously has his hands full today as well. You would have noticed some of the scrutiny he's come under, both on the regulatory side and just in the media altogether. I know you've referred to him as a friend before. You share many professional ambitions as well. If Elon Musk were to call you up, what advice would you give him?
Yeah, I think he's maybe needs to learn the art of delegation. It's important. He's got to find time for himself. He's got to find time for his health, and for his family. And he's a wonderfully creative person. But he shouldn't be getting very little sleep. He should find a fantastic team of people around him, and still jump in on all the major issues. And I think the reason that I've had such an enjoyable life and a long life has been finding wonderful people to run our companies, but on the key issues I can then get involved. So if I was to sit down with him, I have talked to him about it, but I think learning the art of delegation better would be his one flaw.
Does it say something too about the difficulties of going public? You've of course have dealt with businesses in the public and private sphere. Do you think entrepreneurs are looking at this saying, "Oof, I may want to think twice"?
I think that if you've got a public company, if you decide to go public, find a good managing director and a good chairman to run your public company, and be the creative individual that he is. Don't feel you have to put out tweets and things about public shareholders. leave the public game to people who enjoy the public game. He obviously doesn't enjoy it, so clear the decks so that you can actually then concentrate on the creative side.
Aside from space, another professional area the two of you share is in the Hyperloop travel, high-speed trains, if we can call it that. You have Hyperloop One under the Virgin brand. You've talked a lot about going to several areas. One country is India you want to go. And how close are you to getting that project up and running?
Very close. I mean, the Indian government have given the go-ahead for Mumbai to Pune. It's the busiest road in India. It takes 5 hours to drive down it. It's a nightmare. Lots of accidents. They've said we can build a Hyperloop right along the side of the road and cut the journey time down to just over half an hour. And so that will start to be built next year, and it'll be the first sort of flagship Virgin Hyperloop that will be built anywhere in the world.
And then after India, what's next?
Once we've got the first, fully running high-speed Hyperloop in place, the demand is, the demand is going to be gigantic. So Dubai, we're talking to them about connecting the new airport with the old airport. Saudi Arabia, we're in discussions about the Hyperloop going through the desert. But I think that it's a business, I think, which has got a fantastic future.
Do you know yet what a ticket will cost to get on board?
It'll be no more than a high-speed train line ticket, and potentially we'll be able to bring the price down further than that.
Since we're talking transportation, I do want to talk to you too about this idea of the return of supersonic travel. Is that something we're going to see anytime soon?
Yes. I mean, I think Virgin Galactic is the only space company that is actually building spaceships shaped as aeroplanes. And once we've got Virgin Galactic, fully bedded down, we want to move on to dealing with high-speed travel. Maybe working with Boom or working in competition with Boom, but I think you will see high-speed travel back again.
How quickly then can I get from here in Singapore to the East Coast in the U.S. because my mom and dad might have an interest in that?
Well, it depends. I mean, obviously what would be wonderful is if we could actually put you into space and then bring you back down again. The only problem is not sure that everybody's body will be equipped for that. You'll have to go through you'll be travelling at 17,500 miles an hour, so your journey time would only be half an hour. But the G-forces coming back for some passengers may not work. So I suspect we'll go suborbital, just below space, which would still halve the journey time, maybe slightly more than half the journey time.
Being in the business of transport, among so many other things, climate change is of a big concern to you at the moment. There was quite a damaging report coming out from the IPCC this week. How concerned are you about the current efforts to tackle climate change?
The IPCC report was one of the most damning reports I've ever read. Terrifying. I mean, they were talking about massive flooding, increased hurricanes, losing every single reef in the world, and much quicker than they'd estimated before. So my feeling is that we need to take this as seriously as the world did when Hitler started the Second World War. We need to get all the countries together. We need to create a Marshall Plan for the world, and we need to jump on it. And I believe that the private sector and government can work together on working out a Marshall Plan to solve this problem. We will solve it. Last week we announced at Virgin Atlantic that we were flying one of our planes on fuel that was going up the chimney of aluminium plants and steel plants into the atmosphere, and we were actually taking that chimney waste and turning it into jet aviation fuel with a company called Galactic. Now, if every single steel mill and aluminium mill were converted, 50% of all planes in the world would run on recycled fuel. And so governments and the private sector need to sit down and let's work out how it can be done, and let's solve the problem and make sure the world doesn't face a disaster.
When you draw comparisons to the Marshall Plan, I wonder to what extent we need U.S. leadership. You have lamented President Trump's own decision on the Paris deal. Have you thought about appealing to him directly? I know you've exchanged letters in the past. What would your message be to the president?
Look, I think that he's just got to start believing in science, and when you've got 1,000 scientists being so clear-cut, you can't ignore them. I mean, even if it's just as an insurance policy, I mean, you just can't ignore them. And so I don't think President Trump would listen to me, but I would just, somebody should appeal to him. Fortunately, in America, most of the major states realize we have a big problem. California are obviously leading the way and showing how it can be done. And if we're not going to get leadership from the White House, we've got to get leadership from the states. But the rest of the world must not wait. I mean, climate doesn't respect borders, and the rest of the world is going to have to rally together to get on top of the problem.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.